Magic Key sales are back. Breaking news today. Big news in regards to Magic Keys coming back to the Disneyland Resort. I brought my fantastic panel, my brothers, to discuss it with you all today on OG 55. Let's do it. We're talking Magic Keys. This is the story, the news that a lot of locals have been waiting for. It's finally arrived. The big day. The keys are back. But before we dive into that, I'm gonna introduce my fantastic panel. I got Mr. Vash Guy, Producer Dre, the DA, the VP, the Dr. Dre, the man who holds many titles. Welcome back, brother. Welcome back to the show.
We keep stacking them on. Maybe is fortune teller? Maybe we can add that one on too, right? But we'll get into that shortly. Hey, if you want to go ahead and follow me, you can go and do so right there at Vash Sky, which if you were following, you might have been tipped off onto this. But I can't take full credit for it, but we'll get into that shortly. As Christine Wastelands McCarthy would say, however, for all the robust discussion, you can go ahead and follow me right there. OG, do you have that drop there, which we might be using quite a bit here?
Yes, absolutely. Take it away, Walt.
And there's the biggest bargain of all.
The biggest bargain of all, indeed. And if you want to see more of me, you can go ahead and do so right here at Orange Grove 55 on a little show called Freshly Squeezed, your source for juice and news and info squeezed fresh right from the Grove.
Perfect.
Just squeeze it. Squeeze it.
That's it, right? There you go.
There we go. A little 90s flashback for all you 90s kids. You might remember that. Down below, Mr. Family Man 23 wearing a hat. Again, Mr. Family Man, welcome back, brother. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing good. And as Mr. Vashkai says, I'm ready to talk this robust discussion with you fellas today.
Yes. If you let everybody home know where they can find you on social media, my friend.
Absolutely. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Disney Family Man 23. If you want to interact with me, you could do so on Twitter at Disney George. And I also have to throw in a plug. I'm also part of a new podcast called A Walk with Walt podcast with some of my other podcast friends, and also including Mr. OG 55 sisters. So we got to keep it in the family here.
Yes, Ashley, I love you, and definitely check them out. I will link it down below in the description. Subscribe to them, listen to them. Amazing. Obviously, I have an enormous bias because it's my sister, but they are exceptional.
It's the incredible crew over there, certainly.
Yeah. So if you love Mr. OG 55, you got to show some love to his sister. Yeah, got to keep it in the family. Yes. And then of course you can find me here on Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with the sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
Pay attention, It's Joe time.
Yes. So today we're talking Magic Keys, and you key holders have been waiting for this day that they're going to open up the Magic Keys again, because for the longest time.
Oh, no use. I forgot to tell you. I'm locked.
You have been locked out. You've been locked out, but not anymore. Now they are out for sale. So, Dre, you want to set the table a little bit before you start the festivities?
I would love to, sir. Why don't you go ahead and share my screen real fast, because I alluded to, hey, maybe if you were following a little account called Vash Guy on Twitter, maybe you would have been alerted to this, but I can't take credit for myself, of course. Ryan Theme Park had the scoop here. As you can probably see on your screen here, Disneyland has quietly removed the Believe and Imagine key from the Magic Key sales website, leaving only the Inspire and Enchant key. Those two pass levels are still listed on the Magic Key info page. Disneyland getting ready to resume sales. He said this at 8 p.m. My time, so that would have been what, 7:25 Pacific time yesterday. I said it yesterday, so it was like, oh well, this is very interesting. As soon as I saw that, I retweeted it out, and and hopefully got some traction on that. Love to show this guy some love here. He's been doing a phenomenal job when it comes to some of these updates that are park related. Sure enough, Ryan here, he was correct, because now today's big announcement, via Scott Gustin and others, they are now selling keys once again. They are selling all keys except for the Enchant key, it looks like, and there has been, I believe, no price increase and so forth with that. Disneyland says, end quote, "With an incredible year ahead, we're happy to open new sales for select Magic Key passes in time for holiday giving and to create, in time for holiday giving, and to create opportunities for guests to treat themselves and their families to a full year of experiences during the upcoming Disney 100 celebration." Guys, what do you think about this?
It's interesting. It's very, very interesting. We just had a quarterly earnings report where the theme parks did very well, actually. The theme parks had a really robust business, It was the streaming side, studio side, that was really dragging the company down, right?
Yes. Yeah.
We just got word the other day, Walt Disney World will not be reinstating annual pass sales for the entire rest of the year.
Yes.
Until 2023.
Yes.
A little surprising. And it's even more surprising because that same gentleman, Ryan Theme Park that you showed just a second ago,
yeah,
he made a tweet, I think it was just a few weeks ago, that the key holders are all blocked out, or at least one or two of the keys are all blocked out for actually all the keys are blocked out for like several weeks in December. So it's a little weird to me how, like, okay, so they're blocking key holders for December, or at least here and there throughout the month of December, but yet now they're reinstating the sales of the Magic Keys. Like, what's going on here? Because, like, on one hand, they're telling us, well, we don't really need you guys. We're going to block you out. We're going to have day ticketers come in, right? We're blocking everybody. But then on the other side of that coin, they're saying, well, no, we need you. Christine Waistlines McCarthy's pulling the lever. We're opening up the sale. So I'm kind of confused based on the blockout dates in December. Not too friendly to key holders, but yet they're opening up the sales. I don't know. What do you think, Dre? What does this mean? Oh, go ahead.
No, I just have this. So does that mean that they're allowing the sales to go forth where you could actually purchase the key, but maybe not necessarily make the reservations for the rest of the year?
Yeah.
This is for purchasing the keys. So that doesn't necessarily mean you're guaranteed a reservation.
Right.
So you can purchase the keys.
So if they blocked out the remaining for the rest of the year, could that just be why you could just make the purchase for the key, and then going forth up until January of 2023, the newfound key holders could then start making the reservations?
I mean, if in fact they are, booked up in the ensuing months, then that is what they're kind of saying to you. That if you want to, you can purchase it now, hold on to it, not activate it until January. I will say though, some people did that where they bought a key, I believe it was August 25th of 2021, right? Bought a key, held on to it for a little bit, and they kind of were in this kind of gray zone where, renewals, came online. People, either were outside of the window to renew, not inside the window to renew. Some keys were, the fear was that they were going to sell out of those keys before they could renew. It's a whole mess. But if you wanted to, you could purchase it now. Wait to actually utilize it in January, and that's when your year cycle starts at that price. It is interesting, OG. I mean, it doesn't make sense at first, but when you look into it, it kind of makes a little bit more sense, because these things, let's be honest, they don't happen in a vacuum, especially now. But before we get to that, I wanted to go ahead and play this one bit of audio from the Q3 2022 earnings report. Not this last one, but 2 earnings reports ago, because I think it might provide a little bit of a foundation for what's going on here. So let's see.
Do it. Get nerdy.
As it relates to levers of demand, some of the things we could do, Doug, we had limited the number of annual passes that we have across some of our businesses, some of the parks, and all of those come with the exception of the highest tiered priced annual passes. They all come with some blackout dates. So to the extent to which perhaps you had lightened demand, you could loosen up some of those to bring more people in the park and just enjoy the park and spend money while they're there. And also as it relates to demand, we have not yet seen a demand abate at all, and we still have many days when people cannot get reservations. So we're still seeing demand in excess of the reservations that we are making available for our guests.
So you can see there, that was Christine Wastelands McCarthy, of course, on the phone call there, telling one of the questioners what the strategy here was. And she said it right there. We haven't seen demand abate at all, but when we do, we pull that lever. And I think that's what this is about. Not in the near term. I think Disney's internals are suggesting that maybe there might be some visitation drop-off in the long term, or medium term, whatever you want to call it. Longer than the holidays, let's say, right? Yeah. Longer than the holidays. Yeah. And I think it's because of some of these issues. I've been talking about it for some time now. Oh, there's some recessionary problems here. I think they want to have a bedrock, a foundation established, a good number of APs just waiting in the wings there, so that they can go ahead and call on them, make more reservations available for them, and so forth to get bodies in the park. I think that's where this is going. And two, also remember, this is the middle of November. That's a weird time to announce the opening of sales for Magic Keys. But it's in the middle of Q1 2023. And I think that is an important thing, because if we remember, Q1 of 2022 was very favorable, right? I mean, that was a big banger quarter for them. I don't think they want to be stuck in the same position where there's this delta between where projections are and where they actually met them, like we experienced in this last quarter. So I think they're trying to fend that off as well, get some big sales under their belts, and establish that kind of that bedrock for them, that foundation for them of bodies with which they can fill the parks with. This is why, OG, whenever you ask me, it's like, I'm sorry, we had conversations about this, and I know you were saying, well, I think they're moving away from APs, and I said, you're right, they are. They absolutely are, no question. It is an unfavorable mix, right? However, you always want to keep some of those in your back pocket, and this is what we're seeing here.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, George.
And that's why I think coming off of that last quarter of how the numbers projected between the parks and the studio, and now Disney is kind of showing that they read it as well as the fan base does. They understand the concept, and I think this is the first wave of progression towards leaning more towards the parks, because that way you can have your set base annual pass holders that if you were to need them, when we get into the recession, I'm not going to say if, I'm going to say when, because we're already in the peak of it, that, Disney's already building that foundation for those happenings, and then the discounts possibly for hotel stays or what have you. And it even shows over at Walt Disney World, where they released a higher price ticket value for the Walt Disney World parks, but it depends on which park you're going to. So even Disney has a value on these parks of how well they perform.
Well, and it's interesting because, this is a smart move, because I think that the recession, the economy is not going to improve anytime soon. I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, but we're heading towards some really turbulent weather, so to speak, in regards to the recession. So it's a smart move for Disney to sort of get in on this and be like, okay, kind of be a little bit proactive, right? And be like, okay, for the year, we can lock these key holders in, right? We can lock them in. We can get their money now before the turbulent stuff really starts to hit us hard. I think it's a smart move. I do. I think it's a smart move.
It's also interesting too. I mean, Look, it's turbulent times for the Walt Disney Company for sure. We have heard, which we'll talk about more in greater detail about Chapek's move towards this kind of economic task force that he's kind of assembling here to kind of look at the balance sheet, let's say, in the various divisions and so forth. We know that there's going to be a hiring freeze, layoffs imminent, that kind of thing. But looking, and again, the Walt Disney Company doesn't operate in its own vacuum either. There are real kind of market forces at play here. We're now seeing huge layoffs from, Meta, Amazon just announced big layoffs, Twitter,
Warner Brothers, Comcast, all of them.
Right? This is going to sound ominous, but I saw this hit up my Twitter feed here from Richard Barris. Get ready for the real economic pain. They don't have to pretend they're keeping your job around anymore. I guess another person saying that Jim Cramer has said that there's a real possibility the Fed can engineer a soft landing. That's again. It's getting a little bit tumultuous here, right?
Yeah.
And again, like these kind of Silicon Valley types that you're hearing losing their jobs, this is a kind of demo that Disney has tried to court and had paid considerable resources in order to court for quite some time. This is the kind of guest they want in the parks. And if you have a major segment like this losing a good portion of their jobs, I mean, again, what does that mean for domestic and international travel? I'm not sure, but whatever it is, Disney is kind of hedging its best bets against that with the activation of these annual pass holders. Like you said, OG, lock them in for a year, and now we can pull that lever whenever we want.
Yeah, no, 100%. George, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you fellas on that. I think, especially what you said, OG, I think once you lock those people in, especially at those prices, you could take, Disney could use the recession and the economic changes as their wave of saying, get this in while you can. We don't know, if we're going to have to relinquish them off again or not, even though Disney in their mind, they may not, but letting guests know, it's like an incentive to say, get it now. Then once it's locked in, then just in case if something comes around, it's like, oh, well, you can renew again.
Yep.
It's like just feeding that monster, so to speak.
That demand. Yeah.
Right.
Which Chapek has expertly done in the past. We've talked about the Vault and some of those kind of limited supply kind of things. Hey, this might be your last chance to get Pinocchio on 4K Blu-ray, something like that. You know what I'm saying? So they are an expert in managing that. I think it's very fascinating because it speaks to a kind of a wider thing that we're seeing within the Walt Disney Company. Containing costs, looking at the balance sheet, evaluating the balance sheet. We know that layoffs are coming and so forth. This is. I think you're right, George. I think Chapek does want to lean in more into the parks when it comes to these kind of things, right? Because it's like quarter after quarter after quarter, it's the parks hitting those numbers out of the park. And even with this last quarterly earnings report, even though the parks division didn't necessarily hit its projections, that was largely because Shanghai and Hong Kong are closed. And it was it was within striking distance of those projections. So it's like this, I mean...
Thanks, Iger.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, we'll get to that for sure. But while they're in this arms race when it comes to the streaming side of things, while their content might not be hitting it out of the park when it comes to some of their cinematic releases, I think Strange World will actually join the likes of Lightyear, maybe do better, but it's definitely. I mean, I don't hold out much hope. A lot of uncertainty there, but it's like the parks, that's your consistent moneymaker. And I think you're right, George. I think it's Chapek leaning into that a little bit. The question really is like, do we see even more changes than just the activation of annual passes, which a lot of people thought, might never happen. I was like, well, it's probably going to happen after this year. I think for Walt Disney World, you can certainly say that. For Disneyland, I was taken aback by that. But George, I think I knew where you're going to go, but go ahead and go there.
Yeah, because I think honestly, Christine Waistlines McCarthy had mentioned this during the quarterly earnings, that she had brought up annual passes and also discounts for hotels and vacation packages. Well, we're already starting to see that movement with the Magic Keys. So I think honestly, maybe by the end of the year going into 2023, I think we're going to start seeing some hotel and vacation package discounts. And I think that's going to be the next wave that because even Braden from Mickey Views had touched upon this subject in his latest video. And I think that this is paving the way. They're starting out with the Magic Keys because just like with the ticket prices, they always start out with Disneyland and then they move right along to Walt Disney World. It kind of goes hand in hand.
Like Christine Waistlines McCarthy stated, right? When demand abates, I think their internals are suggesting that demand is wavering just a little bit. A lot of people, and I was reading some trade publications saying, "Oh yeah, well, there's pent up demand for the park, so it's going to be fun." It's like, I think that demand's kind of over. I think it's now, we're getting into this kind of mix here where you don't have necessarily bone crushing demand. And we might be in a position where you have to incentivize for that demand. So I think that's part of it as well. What do you think, OG?
No, I think you're right. I think we're heading into some rocky territory with the economy, and you're seeing discounts across the board. You're seeing Universal. If you go on their website, Universal Orlando is giving away tickets like crazy, discounting like crazy. Disney's now getting in on that game. Now, I do worry though a little bit, and I've said this before in many videos, and at the risk of sounding like totally elitist, but I think when you start to heavily discount, and we can get into this because of the tiered pricing thing, which I think is definitely related to this.
Absolutely.
But But I think when you get into the discounting, the tickets and the hotels and all that, you run the risk of damaging your overall brand. And I've said this many times in many, many videos, many, many tweets where, you don't see these premium brands. You don't see Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Cartier you don't walk into those stores seeing buy one, get one free, 50% off, 35% off, right? Because these are premium brands. These are known for their quality. It's high end. It's a risk for Disney to get into that game where they're starting to discount stuff. You don't want to be Walmart. You don't want to be Walmart. That's the thing. Disney's seen as, and still is seen as, a premium quality, top shelf kind of brand. And once you go into that discount mode where you're a discount theme park now, I think that hurts your long term. I think that hurts your brand. I really, really do.
I think if Disney was the kind where they allowed the discounts for every day, every month of the year, I think what Disney would probably do, and I could be wrong, they'll pick certain times of the year, because they used to do this before. They'd say if you come between March 5th through April 17th, and depending on which tier of hotel you're staying at, and I'm speaking for Walt Disney World because that's what I'm used to seeing, that you'd get 15% off your hotel if you're staying at a value. You'd get 20% off if you're staying at a moderate, or you get 25% off if you're staying at a deluxe. I think that would be the approach Disney would take, where it's maybe like looking at the lesser end of ticket sales and park reservations and say, okay, this is going to be the time that's going to hit us low once the recession hits. Let's put this time frame for a discounted deal for whatever it would be. Because I also remember they did that with the dining plan. Now, I take that as a grain of salt because the dining plan really actually hurt Disney in the long run. And that's why I don't think that would ever come back.
That I think that's a very open question there, George. There's a lot there, but Chapek, I mean, when talked about, I believe when he was asked, hey, price increases, whatever, I think he said most recently that'll be up to the consumer, right? And you can look at that the opposite way as well. I think Chapek definitely wants a more flexible company. I think right now, even in Bob Iger's tenure, he did discount during 2008 and so forth. I remember an earnings call actually following that period. I think it was in 2009, 2010, where Iger said, and then Jay Rasulo with them, hey, we're going to stop discounting so aggressively now that we're kind of past the point of the worst of 2008. We feel that we don't need to. And then they continue to do so for, like 10 years or something. It was a while.
Well, and the monthly payment plan for the APs are essentially doing that too. It's essentially a discount because you're basically telling someone,
yes.
Hey, you can put a little something on it right now. You got to pay the whole thing. It's a discount,
right? Yeah, no, you have a bulk price point that you're setting these things at, and it really kind of is fascinating. I think you're at a point here, OG. I think there's going to be some pricing flexibility, but you're right though. You don't want to necessarily ingrain into your consumer culture that this is going to be a discount oriented thing,
a Six Flags,
and that's where it would show. Because actually, Dre, you and I were talking about this earlier that they had the discount. Well, everything got price ranged in the tickets for Walt Disney World parks except for Animal Kingdom. Animal Kingdom was the only one that didn't get a price hike. And we were actually talking that if it came to be where they would add the Moana and Zootopia change to Dino Land, sure enough, after that gets put in, there goes the price hike for Animal Kingdom. So I think that Disney is kind of having that incentive of it being a lower price so that Diz Twitter wouldn't be in an uproar, but I think that they'll go to show that once they add more in, and this even could go to the what if Beyond Big Thunder in time for Magic Kingdom, that tier price will go up even higher. So I think that's the way that Disney's going to go about doing it, that if you want to see more in the parks, then you're going to see a price increase.
I think they want dynamic pricing across the board,
Right.
Sorry, OG. I'll continue my point. What you were saying?
Well, no, I was just saying, that's look a lot. That's the issue with dynamic pricing, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because then you give Disney the justification. Hey, look, we just added a whole new land to Disneyland. You're going to pay more now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be a flat rate, right?
And that's where, sorry, Dre, just my last point. And I think actually history is going to repeat itself because when you look at it back in 2007 and 2008, to my knowledge, Disney really wasn't producing anything new into the parks. And even years afterwards, it wasn't until Universal's Wizarding World in 2010 that the game really changed. And that's when Disney started producing more investment into the parks. And I feel like that's going to be the way now. I think Disney's not going to touch nothing until they actually get the green light for Animal Kingdom, which I think that's going to happen one way or the other. I think they kind of have that set in place. And also depending on the attendance wave of Epic Universe. So again, relying on how people's response for Universal, then they may put more investment into the parks.
Well, for Walt Disney World, you're right. 2007, 2008, pretty lean years. But for DCA, they had invested into the $1.5 billion makeover, right? That's when it actually started. But to your point, George, that was precipitated by them kind of feeling that they needed to. Because, I think Iger felt that DC didn't quite reflect the park's brain in the way that he was envisioning. But even back then, even when it came to DCA, right? When DCA opened in 2001, it was there was like a delta, let's say, between what the number of attractions and so forth that people could find at Disneyland versus Disney California Adventure at that time. But even then, Paul Presser was like, no, we're not having these two theme parks priced differently. We're going to have them priced, individually. They even had individual annual passes, if you can believe it. You had to buy a pass for DCA, and you had to buy a separate pass for annual pass for Disneyland. Crazy, but no, we're going to have a set price for both because from the company standpoint, we value them the same. Now, OG, you have been very astute in bringing this up that there were some buy one get one offers and so forth, and that was kind of their way of discounting. But numerically, when you look at that, menu board of pricing options to actually get into those parks, they were priced similarly. Now we see a dramatic change in philosophy when it comes to the kind of pricing model for the parks, pricing them individually. This is something that we have talked about on this show before here, and what does this all mean? What does this? What kind of ramifications can come from a move like this? I put out a tweet on Twitter, and I thought it summed it up quite nicely. So I'll read it real fast. Good, is this good or bad for the parks? Right? One could look at it and argue that investment may actually increase as the Walt Disney Company seeks to increase park valuation. On the other hand, one could make the argument that this mechanism could be used to actually drive down investment. For example, if one park experiences overwhelming demand, either through lack of supply, an event, etc., they can partially offset that by raising the price of that park for that period or that day while lowering the price for the others. In that event, supply or investment remains unchanged. We did kind of see that even with when DCA actually launched as DCA 2.0 in the summer of 2012, we saw that a little bit, because I remember very vividly the largest increase to the annual pass that I had ever seen came right before the opening of Cars Land. That was them telling you the valuation has changed. To your point, OG, I think that's what this is. And that would actually go to the first part of my tweet there, which is to say, if you want to have these priced similarly, you would have to invest more. To your point, George, that's Animal Kingdom to raise it up there. And I think we might see that. It's just a question of when at this point, because I don't think the company wants any big capital investments outside the studios at this point.
Well, and the interesting thing too, we talked about this on the phone, but I'll bring it up on the video too, Dre. Disney has sort of, not in the theme park space necessarily, not so overtly, but like in other spaces, they have sort of dictated value based on price. Like, for example, you're going to pay more for the Grand Californian than you will the Paradise Pier Hotel. Absolutely. That is Disney telling you, hey, this one is a more premium experience than that one, right? Yes. And you see it all over Florida. This hotel resort is going to be more or less than that hotel and resort.
And you see it per season. When rooms are refurbished, they go up and down. Yeah.
Right. So I think Chapek is looking at this going, well, why can't we do that with theme parks? And look, I don't necessarily agree with that mindset, but I mean, I can see the point. I mean, we're doing it already with the hotels. You're already telling people there's a value assessment there. When you say, I'm going to charge you $800 for the Grand Cali, but it's only $450 for a Disneyland hotel. Well, that's a value assessment. You're telling somebody these two Disney-owned properties now are not the same.
That's why I kind of lean more towards understanding it. As far as for Walt Disney World's point of view, because if you up the price of the ticket, no matter what, say they don't do the expansion at Animal Kingdom first, they do Magic Kingdom and they do Villains, Encanto, Coco, what have you, and they up the price because they did that expansion at Magic Kingdom for all 4 Walt Disney World parks at the same price. So you're paying that premium price, as you had mentioned, OG, of what you should be getting at Magic Kingdom, but are you really necessarily getting it at Animal Kingdom? No. So that's where I feel in that manner, that's where it kind of benefits. Now, to your point, OG, I do see your point where that the more you do invest into the parks, how much is too much? Because Disney has always said, it'll never end. It'll continue to grow and expand. So for every little thing that you grow and expand within the resorts, how much can you really say you can keep on capitalizing the price increase to, because people are already saying, is it really even worth it? Is it affordable for our family right now? Say like a family of 4 or a family of 5. So if it constantly keeps on getting increased by those standards, then it's basically going to be for the rich.
Yeah. So a couple things on that. I mean, you're kind of right there, George. Look, if Animal Kingdom closes at 6 and Epcot closes at 9, even if they're priced the same per hour, that's a different valuation right there.
Right.
So it's kind of putting it more in line with maybe even consumer, what they would feel as consumer expectations, setting those expectations accordingly with that price. I think it's kind of overdue. Honestly, I think this should have been done maybe possibly before. However, that does get into some kind of tricky situations when it comes to, like, for example, the allegory towards hotels, right? Well, yes, they are priced differently, and I do agree with you that they're kind of applying it at that level. But nobody stays at Disney, the Grand Californian 2 nights, Disney Hotel 1 night. Paradise Pier the other night, they stay at one place. So how does that work when you're kind of doing multi-day passes? Does that kind of change right there? Maybe in the future it does. Also, too, annual passes. Again, I don't know why they're on this kind of 1-day reservation model. I think it's kind of foolish. It really should be a point system right now. Look, if I am an annual pass holder at Walt Disney World, right, and I want to make a reservation, 1 day is a day, park. It really should be points where it's like, hey, maybe on this day, Animal Kingdom's worth 3 points. Epcot 4 points, maybe Hollywood Studios is worth 8 points, Magic Kingdom 7 points.
It should have been a point system
that you play with.
It should have been a point system from the get-go when they started the reservation system, just in general.
And then you can factor in seasonality. You can factor in all the things because, December 25th is a lot different than a random Tuesday in February. You know what I'm saying? I think everybody would agree with that. So why are they valued the same, utilizing this kind of reservation model that they've constructed as far as the annual passes go? I think a lot of these things need to be kind of addressed. And to Chapek's credit, he has shown, hey, you know what? The old guard was the old guard. What Paul Presser thought of the parks and what the company thought of the parks back in 2001, that's a different story here in 2022. And we should be able to change with those times and have this kind of variable pricing model. Here we go.
Well, saying that
they're going to lean into it.
Well, saying that Paul Pressler did justice for the Walt Disney Company is saying the Godfather made his money by selling olive oil.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
As an Italian, I can appreciate the olive oil. No, but actually, look, Paul Presser does get a lot of shit, and deservedly so. Like the maintenance, the closing down of attractions and not replacing them. Mm-hmm. But there were some things on his watch that were actually pretty decent. I mean, we have Small World Holiday and Haunted Mansion Holiday.
Yep.
Because of him. Yep. I mean, that was on his watch, to be fair. Believe in Holiday Magic. Believe Magic in the Stars. Those fantastic shows were on his watch. Yep. There were a lot to come out of that era, but man, I mean,
and you can watch those nighttime spectaculars by an overflowing trash can right next to you.
Right, exactly. You can rest your shoulder on a nice heap of trash. Yeah, it was the maintenance back then was really bad, but in terms of there were glimmers, there were gems mixed into that. Yeah. But yeah, I mean I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, look, dude, and then here's the other thing. Fans kind of, guests in general, sort of already place a value statement on things, right? Like, I've seen it many times. Like, why am I paying $150 to go to Universal Studios for 4 rides? Mm-hmm. Why am I paying for 4 rides when I can spend a little bit more and get a dozen more at Disneyland?
Right.
Well, and honestly, this kind of goes back to a recent video that we did, and not to put a price tag on it, OG, but like with the Disney Cruise Line, you know, if you compare it to another cruise line, you put a price tag on it. I'm not going to lie, it's not cheap, but you get your money's worth for it. And honestly, if you get your money's worth for it, and I can only speak for myself, I'd be willing to pay that premium price as long as the quality. If the quality is there, then I can deal with that price tag.
Doing research for this show, I was going through that quarterly earnings report, the Q3 2022 quarterly earnings, and Christine Waysons McCarthy actually brought up the cruise line and said highest guest satisfaction across the entire, not just the Disney Parks division, but across the entire brand, in terms of a product that they offer.
Rightfully so.
She actually brought up the fact that I guess 40% of people who embark on a Disney cruise would have never even thought about getting into cruising at all had it not been for a Disney cruise. So it's like, wow, that's a really exactly. It's a really kind of interesting sentiment, right? And yeah, I mean, it's absolutely there. I think people are okay paying a little more for a great product. This is kind of why I'm like, well, yes, Genie Plus it has helped the company financially, and JPEG loves to tout it at every single quarterly earnings call. Wall Street definitely seems to like it and so forth, but it's like, couldn't you have done the same if you just increased the price of every single guest walking through the door at least $20, and you would have had 100% enrollment, let's say, in that. But again, there's some elasticity, let's say, that they like with the Genie Plus product. It's a very kind of interesting sentiment. I wonder. I do wonder how people are going to be evaluating the park product. And, now with some of these, let's say, complicating factors being added in. Complexity is a downside. It is not enviable when it comes to the consumer. I think a lot of people kind of like the Universal model, where it's like, oh, if I stay at a Universal resort, I get express pass included. I don't have to make reservations and so forth. It's a little bit more simplistic. I wonder if Disney is taking that into account, or it's just going to be variable pricing no matter how complex it is.
And they really should, because as you speak to the consumer, us as Disney fanatics in the Disney community, we're used to that kind of stuff. We know the way that Disney thinks and how, they maneuver. But if you get someone who's a newbie and doesn't really know anything about it, are they really going to understand the lingo and the way around it? And that's what Disney has to consider.
I was seeing a tweet by Disney Glimpses. He was like, I try to explain Genie Plus to somebody, I can't do it. It's very, very difficult. Go ahead, OG.
And that's where I love GG. He's a close friend. I love GG, but I kind of disagree with that. I actually got a comment yesterday on a video I made about Genie Plus. A gal, respectfully, she commented and said, look, Genie Plus is complicated for me. And I'm like, well, okay. But what's complicated? I'm not a genius, okay? I'm definitely not. I'm not a brain surgeon. I'm not a rocket scientist. I have no issue going on the app and doing Genie Plus. I don't see the complex nature of it. Maybe I'm missing something. I do Genie Plus. I do mobile ordering just fine. I don't know. Am I like a superhuman? I don't know. I don't know where is the complexity exactly about going on the app and just paying for it and then picking the rides. Where is that complexity exactly?
Well, it's I think it's on top of when you look at the parks product, it's like, okay, like what I tried to have this conversation with somebody who didn't know the parks at all. I was like, hey, I was thinking about Disneyland, a vacation to Disney. It's like, okay, here's some tips and pointers here for you. All right, well, if you want to eat anywhere at any of the fine dining restaurants available, you got to do that 60 days in advance. Make sure when you actually buy your ticket, go ahead and buy that right now, but you also have to make reservations for that. And make sure you get the ticket for that price. Okay, well, now if you want to go ahead and front load Genie Plus, you can. However, at $25, but if you wait on the day of, it might be a little bit more. And Genie Plus works and I'm explaining this whole thing, and it's just like, what is happening? What is going on there? Eventually, she didn't actually go because it was so complex. And look, I think Genie Plus itself, I think is. I think it's relatively simple to understand, just not using the lingo that they use, unfortunately. Yeah,
maybe the branding could have been a little better. Fast Pass.
That was it.
Yeah.
Right, everybody understood that.
Yeah.
It's very straightforward, right? If you just did
Fast Pass, that's it.
Right. If you just kept the Fast Pass branding, maybe it would have been a little bit easier. Yeah, I don't see the complexity any more than, okay, when I go to the airlines, I got to buy a ticket and I got to get a day and a time and a seat number and this, that, and the other. It's kind of the same thing. I'm like, okay, it's a process, but it's not like anything that it's not like, I'm filing my own taxes. I can handle this, I can handle this, but yeah, I teach their own. And, and especially when it comes, look, When I see Magic Key holders saying that this is too complex, I'm sorry, I'm calling bullshit. This is the same demo that managed to hack. I see a million videos, a million tweets about it, how you can hack your vacation, how you can do this and do that. They know every angle to get the new popcorn bucket, the new sipper, this, that, and the other. But for some reason, Genie Plus is too complex for these key holders. Come on. Well, I don't buy it.
That's an interesting thing because I've heard
now
some
that
people...
I don't either. That
I know.
At that point, I don't believe that they're literally the first in line for that popcorn bucket.
Well, hang on. A lot of people have made the argument that some of these systems favor the very knowledgeable more than the average guest, because they simply don't know as much as a guest who really knows the system, right? They know how to work the system the best as possible. I think Chapek has kind of given an out in some of these things, okay, well, hey, there's no gaining of the system if you charge for it, right? That becomes a little bit more simpler of a process. Hey, fantastic viewing, it can be a little complex, but hey, here's your out. You can get a dinner package right here. We'll save the seat for you. That kind of thing, right? I think he's, it's you having these additional services offering some simplicity. Go ahead, George.
Oh, no. And I was just going to say, I mean, I do understand that to an extent, but it's also to the fact, if you're as a key holder, then you have to know something of the lingo of Disney, of how to work a magic key and how it works. Yes. So, I mean, I do see your point, but I mean, I also see OG's point in that sense.
And I think with those consumers, George, the Disney company, they have no I think they know that they'll be able to figure out anything they throw at them, right? That whatever the Disney company actually establishes, right, and whatever rules and whatever, they'll be able to figure that out. Whereas I think the consumer that they want most might not be able to.
That's exactly yes, right yeah. It's like the people that the audience that they want a more higher percentage of are the ones that are completely ignorant to the fact of how to work it, and the people that they're trying to kind of back off, they know the whole ins and outs.
Exactly. The people they have, they know. The people they don't have, they don't know. And I think that's where the juxtaposition is.
But the irony is that the people that should know are the ones complaining the most. So that's why I'm kind of wait a minute, what's going on?
That's one of the reasons why they don't want them.
Yeah. And yet, actually, if you actually see, they had an annual pass preview just for annual pass holders at Walt Disney World's Fantasmic. Mm-hmm. I forget who posted the video. It was only a small percentage of the people sitting in the center of the amphitheater. There was nobody else around. And that really just goes to show how many people are actually annual pass holders that were there present for that Fantasmic showing. Wow, and it was that. It was more ticket holders than annual pass holders in that park at Hollywood Studios that night for Fantasmic.
Wow.
Fascinating.
All right. I think that wraps up for today, OG. I think there's a lot of other things that I definitely want your insights on, especially when it comes to this quarterly earnings report, this infamous memo that was delivered by Bob Chapek, among other things going on in the company.
Yes. We're going to wrap it up today. We wanted to, do a quick video on this kind of this tiered pricing, the Magic Keys coming back. That was big news. A lot to discuss today. Comment down below with all your thoughts. I know you all have some thoughts on this. Comment down below. Before we close it out, though, I want to conclude with my fantastic panel, my brothers, my family, Dre, producer Dre, the DA, the VP, the doctor, ready to operate. Thank you for joining us again, Mr. Vash Guy. If you can go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you on social media, my friend.
Well, I do appreciate it. You can go ahead and find me at Fashguy on Twitter. It's right down there, as Christine Wilson McCarthy would say, for all the robust discussion right there. And if you want to, if you want to see more of me, well, you got to subscribe to OG55 right here to see the show freshly squeezed. Your source for juicy news and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove. Hey, Walt, what do you have to say about that?
And the hard facts.
Those are hard facts right there. Go ahead, OG.
Those are hard facts. And hold on one sec. We're going to go ahead and...
And now your host,
Here we go.
And there's the biggest bargain.
Your host, Walt Disney, the biggest bargain of all.
Biggest bargain of all. I do appreciate it, OG. And George, tell the fine viewers at home where they can find you, sir.
Absolutely. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Disney Family Man 23. If you want to interact with me on Twitter, you could do so at Disney George. And of course, and I also have to throw that in there. I completely forgot. A Walk with Walt podcast. Definitely check us out. New episodes coming out soon. And of course, you can find me at my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
Pay attention, it's showtime.
Oh, there you go. Nope, I see. You misfired. I misfired. Oh, there it goes.
There we go. And I'm actually getting a transmission from the key holders in regards to, are they going to buy the Magic Key?
Yeah, I'm gonna get one for show. I'm getting that for show.
Okay. Yeah, they're getting that for show. They're getting that for show.
For sure.
Except our buddy Rankin the Mouse. He's not getting one.
That surprised me as much as anybody. Hey, look, listen.
Hey, I respect
I have
it.
respect.
Yeah,
I respect it. I respect it.
But if nothing else, we'll have Jonah Hill in the parks.
There we go.
For sure.
Exactly. For sure. Or even better, we can have Emperor Palpatine.
Everything is proceeding as I have foreseen.
And honestly, I have no idea why I played that. I just like Palpatine. Anyway.
Very much.
There you go.
There we go. And I
You could have her
don't like
too.
Brie Larson, but it is funny though. Thank you all so much for watching this episode of OG 55. Comment down below. We would love to hear from you. As always, have a wonderful, wonderful